All right. Think we're all good in that department. We still got folks flowing in. Also, always love seeing people with their face cams on. No pressure if y'all do not want to do it, but it's always nice to see smiling faces, pearly whites. And we'll give it a few more minutes for folks to come in before the reading starts. Emma and Tzynya, where are y'all broadcasting from?
I'm calling in from Lubbock, Texas.
Oh, nice. I am calling in from Plymouth, Massachusetts.
All right. I'm North Carolina bound right now, so we got a broad spectrum coming.
I bet our weather is vastly different.
Yes, I think it's 40 degrees right now where I am.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really? So not that much. Ours is about, I want to say maybe in the high 30s, maybe close to 40.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Our height is 65. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, hello there. My name is Sherry Ann Turpin, and I am broadcasting from Washington, D.C. It's in the, I guess, mid 40s or something like that.
That's about right.
And I'm not going to keep my video on because I don't have a lot of clothes on because I'm at home.
This is pajamas. We are in the business of pajamas here, so that's par for the
Yes.
course.
Yes, but I do want to be respectful. And so thank you for inviting me. And I am I work at a university, but I'm not, I'm just me. I'm just Sherry Ann. Okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Sherry Ann.
Yes.
All right.
Hi,
Uh,
Sherry.
oh, sorry, Tzynya, you go ahead.
I was just saying hi. Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Jack Barnell, and I am a friend of all poetry everywhere. Laughing
Hey,
at the
Jack.
fact it's 66 degrees here in Defuniak Springs, Florida. Ha ha ha. So there. And I see my friends Dr. Turpin and TZ are here, and I'd like to say hello to everybody else as well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. As it is 7:05, we will go ahead and get started with the preamble. But welcome to our 166th episode of Poets in Pajamas, brought to you by Sundress Publications. I am Aslan Gossett, and I'll be the curator leading this reading tonight. Our poets, as I'm sure all of you know, at least one of them, if not hopefully both, are Emma Aylor and Tzynya Pinchback. If for accessibility purposes you need a copy of their poems, you may email us at poetsinpajamas@gmail.com and we will get a copy sent over to you. Otherwise, the only other thing that is to be said is that we are recording right now and live streaming to Facebook. For those watching right now on Facebook, if you have any things you want to ask our poets during the Q&A, you can go ahead and ask them there and I will comport them to our Zoom space, or you can go to the Facebook Live event and join the Zoom there and ask them yourselves. Without further ado, though, I believe Tzynya is reading first. Is that correct?
I believe so.
All right. Well, then, Tzynya Pinchback writes, "The Black woman body in nature and illness and joy as a deliberate act. Her poetry has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize, and recent work appears in Deaf Poets Society, Lily Poetry Review, Mom Egg Review, Nacogdoches River Review, and others. She has received fellowships from the Cordial Eye Gallery, Artist Space, Hurst and Wright Foundation, and was a finalist for 2020 Plymouth Poet Laureate. Tzynya is currently participating in Writing the Land Project, connecting writers to conserved landscapes across the Northeast. She blogs about mermaids, surviving cancer, and New England winters at www.tzynyapinchback.com. Tzynya.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining on this Sunday evening. I am wearing pajamas. My pajamas are very wrinkled, so I apologize if my camera is good enough to pick up the embarrassing detail of my wrinkled pajamas, but I pretty much use an iron like once a year. And I plugged it in to use it this evening and found that it doesn't work anymore. So that's how I'm coming to you tonight. Earnest and humble and a bit wrinkled. So before we started, or at the beginning, I guess when the three of us were backstage, we were discussing kind of poem order, and also which poems to kind of to get the vibe. So I think I'm just going to read kind of a mix. And I can't really fill out the room per se, but I think I'll do my best. I'll give it the old college try, if you will. So I'm not going to, I don't know that I might say things between some of the poems or some of the pieces. Just some of them just have a little different inspiration than others. So I'll start with a nature poem. Don't ask how to write a nature poem when motherfuckers in their systems keep killing Black people. Do shrug off your skin, the husk of blood and memory cascading around you, a bright confetti. Like the caribou in summer, shedding fuzzy velvet from its antlers, it knows when winter will come. Don't count the souls like rivers, swelling your throat's bed. Do curl back the soft wool of your breast, like the eucalyptus unbraiding its bark of moss and pest. It knows a thing carried too long is tender. Push through to the lush garden of your own breath, the ribs cage, a procession of bright marigolds guarding the red-tailed hawk in your chest. A tangle of muscle. It does not hunt. It does not sing. So a little about that piece. I was, for people who know me, I'm working on a cancer memoir, or it started out as a cancer memoir. It's really kind of evolved into sort of mapping the experience of being a person living in a Black body, a female body, and just how one navigates the world living in this vehicle. And it's really been an exercise in mapping those experiences to kind of chronic illness, the development of chronic illness, adult onset illness, and kind of our ability to thrive. So it's kind of moved away from memoir and more just kind of like navigating history, so to speak. And anyone who knows me knows that I've been working on this memoir for a couple of years, these poems and essays, but they can get really heavy. And what I always joke to friends is I'll know, or I will have a measure of success for myself when I can just sit down and write a collection of nature poems, because at any time, I really rather be writing about nature. And I was in the process of writing a nature poem for an anthology that I was invited to participate in. And it just exploded all over the news about a person who was killed, right? And the last thing they were doing was photographing birds. They were bird watching, and they were a nature photographer. And I remember sitting down and thinking, all I want to do is write a nature poem, but they keep killing Black people. And that's where that came from. So this kind of feels like if I had to have a bio, like if I could submit a bio, this is really how I feel. So that's And that's how I feel today. So this could change because, you know, we all evolve and change. So in 6 months, it might be something else. Water. Your hair like ribbons of silk, black, against the horizon. On the first warm day of spring, we stood at the shoreline in Hull, pants tucked into our duck boots, braiding seaweed spat from the mouth of the tide. My feet, like hot sand, sank through the shifting sand, and I fell, cold water rushing the length of my body. You plucked me from the undertow at the start of what in the coming weeks I would call the season of my drowning. We wrung out my sweatpants, stuffed clamshells deep into our pockets, and drove home with the ocean in our socks. So, being that this is the season of holidays, it's the end of the year, people start to set their intentions and their priorities for the next year. Some of us make really great and wonderful affirmations that we break, you know, by the second week of January. But I think all that matters is that you lead with gratitude and just putting your best foot forward, right? And this piece I wrote for my brother. It was the first year of the pandemic, and that's all I'll say. I'll let it speak for itself. How to make cornbread dressing when the world is in quarantine. Start with 4 slices of sourdough, a ½ inch thick. Dress them in olive oil, black pepper cracked. Pull apart without regard to the size or shape of the crumbs made. Wreckage, like Interstate 10, a confetti of the tires' skid marks, your drive back to campus freshman year. 375 desert miles hung over from a week at home in LA. Slide the bread under the broiler. Toast it into croutons. About 2 minutes or till the color or till it's the color of our pillow forts erected from mama's couch cushions, harvest gold and brown. Next, you'll want to add stock from the pan holding your turkey and its drippings. Use a ladle. That's the big spoon that looks pregnant when flipped on its head. And I won't mention that at the age of 44, ladle should exist in your kitchen tool lexicon. The ratio of liquid to dry mix of breads, sauteed onion, celery, and meat, if desired, is something you just kind of have to feel. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. Convey the broth with purpose. Careful to retreat at the first hint of drowning, just like Dad on our trip to Big Bear when he walked out into the lake, the two of us, perched like ashy skinned gargoyles on his shoulder, caught the beginning of an underwater trench, spun around like a top, and we giggled at the game of it, not knowing he'd just danced us away from the mouth of peril. Now add a pinch of sage and all the sprigs of thyme. You will never regret an abundance of time. Or speaking this love language that began as rice and seeds, hidden in rows of tightly wound hair braided to the scalp, of the vessels before us, of tempest and the tide, teased out in song. This recipe, like all our stories, a spring flowing from a mother's hand, a child's lips, but rarely ever written down. You were scaling trees, walking the tightrope of pitched and chicken wire fences, while I was learning to cook the way I learned to woman, at the belt of mama's apron. You were leaping from rooftops, tumbling downstairs, twisting joints out of their sockets, splintering bone. But I was mimicking our mother's every move, heating wax into salve, sifting this from that, soon as I was tall enough to see over the lip of her cast iron skillet, learning to get my hands dirty. Now, take a break to give it a taste. Does it look like my dressing? Good. Now pour the mixture into a baking dish made slick with plant-based or unsalted butter. I won't mention that at the age of 44, the specter of malady lurks just over your shoulder, sifting the fine hairs on your arm one by one as if taking inventory. Now stir the dressing with a metal fork. Does it come to rest easy, but not too easy? A little rebellion in its soul, like you, all boy, all sport, dropping high school basketball for drama club, a constellation of stars and a spotlight your second skin. How does it look in the pan? Like mine? Like mama's? Good. Then cover it and place it in the oven. Wait 30 minutes and peel back the cover from one corner of the dish, like begging permission to intrude. Does it look like mine? Like mama's? Good. Remove the foil. Crumple it into a little ball and use it to play catch with your 8-year-old namesake. Right there in the kitchen, an entire inning among the bouquet of herbed and sweet breads the night before Thanksgiving. A viral plague hovering just outside your frost-covered windows. But this, the game of it, is what he will remember in years to come. The way we remember 1984 as the year the Olympics landed in LA, NWA's radio debut, and Roscoe's Chicken is best with lukewarm Pepsi from the can, but not hopscotching over black bodies, alight with rock cocaine like debris scattered the sidewalks. Now bake uncovered till your house smells like that old house off Crenshaw Boulevard, the one with wood blinds covering the windows, large backyard, a tree squat in the center that dropped sour green apples in autumn, where in second grade you shared a first kiss with fourth grade Fredra beside the wood gate, jimmy-rigged to cling with our comings and goings, where mama hid eggs hard-boiled and painted gold at the blush of spring, our baby brother a constellation of new stars in her belly, and where you, afraid of the dark, crept into my bed whispering, "Good night," the two of us staring up at my ruffled canopy of white curtains, the imagined sky dancing behind our eyes. And for this next one, I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm literally jumping around here. An incomplete history of the endangered. The summer we empty the bird feeders, I lose my faith. The upstairs bay windows stare nest high into the yard dense with pines and a redbud tree that shades 2 granite bird baths, dumped dry and sheathed in dark plastic. It all began with a novel flu, your father in sleep flown out from his body, and then the grackles, glossy black corpses, iridescent in grasses from DC to as far west as Ohio, followed by the blue jays, starlings, and then house sparrows. We learned isolation, just like the roof on that old split-leveled house off Sandwich Street will waterfall around you, a shroud. So let's play with sound a little. This poem I wrote, I believe, right after the start of the pandemic, and it is in dedication to my uncle Lloyd and my dad. They're brothers who are almost twin-like in their looks. I mean, I would look at my uncle after my father died, and it was like looking at my father. Blood held tight in a roach clip for Lloyd Ashley Pinchback. Ghosts cannot slip back into the body's drum. Yusef Komanyaka. Tall tales of these brothers score my youth. Nimble escapes from trouble, outpacing a twister with a slick pigeon-toed two-step, the dirt road and a loaf of soda bread, or was it a blue tint milk bottle, the only thing sacrificed to its funnel? Fortuitous stumbles into magic, an ear so tuned to pitch, A note fingered on flute mimics the tremolo of a loon the eye one breath from blindness fails to catch. You should know I am song of pinchback men. You should know I speak your name a ripe plum in my mouth. Black with skin, rice paper thin and alabaster, your teeth cut on the hills of Jim Crow, licked by the fire of Black resistance. And it's all in your music. That rapid fire staccato, the bellyache scat of it, clap back gobbledygook wah wah and mumbo jumbo of it, the hum and the moan of it, the string, the reed, the bell, the play and break of it, the giggle, snatch and croon, curse, relent and release of it, the flush of reefer, scald of hot water cornbread, bow-legged men and wide-hipped women of it, matted afros, back fat and lips turned hot like sun. Give me 5 on the black hand side. Hoof prints from the horseman's steed turned loose, its goddamn metronome. Foot stamping into the flame once more and again, always in time of it, always in time. You should know I am song of pinchback men. You should know I speak your name a blossom on my tongue because beauty is danger, is art, is danger, is love, is danger, is witness. This way through toward the roar of the cymbals' hiss. How am I doing for time?
You have time for about one more.
Perfect. So I think we can I'll end my pieces on something light. And this one is titled We End in Triumph. The day Big Creek swells its banks, we run for high ground. Past the time crowded around a paint-splattered table in a third-floor attic, learning the basics of needlecraft. Like this, I say, posing your thumb and forefinger. You are prowess and preen, eager fingers that can trap a note in the high position, roll below its pitch, and back, send narrow vibrato spiraling out from the neck of a fiddle, cannot tighten a simple crochet stitch. In weeks you are 15, ascend to first chair of the school orchestra, mimic with deft the fast, slow, fast progressions of Bach's concerto for 2 violins in D minor. But today, a 6-inch strand of gold yarn pinched and pulled into an ill-formed slipknot is your undoing. Like this, I say, placing my wrist on your wrist as guide. You are all effort and ache, eyes squinting, mouth pulled into a thin line. In weeks, you are metal braces, an acquired lisp, unlearn the habit of tongue thrust and teeth grinding. But today, the crystal-studded butterflies clipped to your ears bounce, ready their wings for flight with each clench of your jaw. Not one chain stitch mastered. The metal hook water in your hands. You toss it hard into a basket of notions, center table. Fits of rain pummel the roof. The dank room blinking into darkness with each ring of thunder as if conjured by your rage. Ha, I chuckle. You stare at me, eyes wide and fixed, and I repeat myself, ha, ha, ha. The sharp angles of your face soften, and you laugh too. The others look up from their handiwork, and we fall silent, steel ourselves against the dam in us breaking. Tears pool in our eyes, lips tight as if sewn shut, hang our heads slumping until it escapes us. Our first laugh in 3 years. 3 years since you called the devil by its name and we became bandits. Freedom from your father's fingerprints, our only loot. We make our way to the back of the room, spinning, till the displayed bric-a-brac and bolts of bright-colored fabric best for piecing together quilts are whirring streams of color. I pull you to me, skin to skin, twisting and twirling and stumbling down a flight of old wooden stairs, a waltz of woman and girl. We dance out the front door, around the sidewalk, leaping puddles, baby frogs, and downed limb trees. Highway 9 a few miles away washes out. A parade of mud and red-bodied snakes march the city's cobblestone streets in search of flower beds and basements. And carried on the back of our glee, we are swept up into the torrents of rain, our feet no longer touching the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tzynya. That was wonderful and so lyrical and acoustic and so real. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We'll roll right along into our second wonderful reader of the night, Emma Aylor, who is the author of Close Red Water, forthcoming in October 2023. Does that mean that it is out now?
It's out now, yeah.
All right, folks, you heard it here. I would go to emma.aylor.com and pick up a copy of that if you feel so inclined. But Emma Aylor is the author of Close Red Water, now out. Winner of the Barrow Street Book Prize, her poems have appeared in New England Review, AGNI, Colorado Review, Poetry Daily, the Yale Review, and elsewhere. She lives in Lubbock, Texas, and her website is emma.aylor.com.
Thank you so much, Aslan, and thank you so much, Tzynya. That was so beautiful. I'll read actually a few poems first from Close Red Water, which I love the cover of, so I'll share it. So I'll read a few poems from there, and then I'll move on to other ones. Can everyone hear me okay, first of all? Making sure? Okay, perfect. Okay, so Close Red Water is a book about where I'm from. I grew up in rural Virginia. And often about the women in my family and their kind of unacknowledged histories. So I'm going to start with the poem Susie Cruz, which is about my dad's mom. Susie Cruz. The bad women in my family put themselves ahead. They drank, they smoked, they did not marry easy. Hard strawberries cold and false from the grocery that shook like apples in the cut. They held no real names, are well and oh, an absent sound. Were cross, not good, I'm told, for bearing babies. Their children, carried or not, passed through many hands, like everyone else's. Their pasts draped no place for questions. I don't know what they did with thousands of days, knuckles swollen with use, bobby pins parting thin white hair, flat waxen scalp pulled through. One grandmother we call a saint, a good woman, for no complaints. Spoke of herself only after a Lord, or you don't want to hear about that. She waited folded hands, spent youth raising 3 boys and age penciling library books with call numbers. By 13, I couldn't fit my waist in her preserved skirt. Crossword each morning, died at 100 after all had visited and the very minute she was alone. Don't borrow trouble. This next one is for my mom's mom, and this one's called Mount Athos. My granny died face down in the kitchen of the isolate house, atop a hill named for ruins of a burned plantation near, whose owner was rumored to be buried standing so he could continue to survey the land from his summited tomb, up a lick off Possum Creek, itself off a bend in the body of the James. A stroke. And Grandpop made a big show of never looking at her face again. He said he couldn't overlap his memory. He let her lay crashed in her own bones until help came, let her face settle into its death with no witness. And I don't know where her ash was scattered, if it was the memorial just a party in the house without her around, a body never really there, and closing night for my grandfather's 58-year claim to good marriage. I took a train from New York down through Virginia, 8 hours marked at intervals by the crumbling backs of Newark, Baltimore, Washington, Charlottesville, to Lynchburg. To tell the truth, the ease of missing her then was almost a comfort, its relative water-fed simplicity. When I got the call, I had space set for further clearing. On the wall, she was 19 and already flickering, Her hair in my mother's curls or mine, careful set of her mouth, her heels and her dresses. Down the dark hill, weeds lushed by June, our dead gathered to murmur through the river's red throat. And then I'll do one more from the book before moving on to different ones. So this one's called Hecatomb, which is after the term for a sacrifice of oxen or cattle in ancient Greece. Hecatomb. I once pitied how my mother looked when she was just up from sleep. Purple squint leveled at any bare bulb, shoulders curled forward in wilted calves, unsteady knees. She runs, my father said repeatedly, like a deer. Legs like a deer's. I did want those. So I ran along the edges of the now empty fields, a half mile to 122, where tractor trailers shuddered up our hill from the gully, then back. The locusts ticked like hot pickups. Air steamed up from the asphalt, common as it was cruel. Like a wet washcloth. This was said often. Often when driving across the cattle guard, on foot, toe tip to each slot, touch each, or leap it all over and touch none. My mother remembered. Looking in the deep eyes of Black Angus, she saw just steak, grant them nothing. Hitching hay bales with the flat of her high school thigh created enviable distress, a true fade to the jeans that classmates wanted, unaware of its making. I first bled one of those nights as it moved to September, stained until I ran water in the carved open belly of the bathtub, and in that room was a high window looking north over branch-battered tin. No cattle to see by then, just white-tailed streams of deer that ate even the canes of heirloom roses and jumped the thread of the 10th-mile gravel driveway, usually at dawn, sometimes at dark. Everyone in their rooms dreaming. I passed outside to run until my thighs were clean. Was that ever my life? To see the cement strokes of the cattle guard, the gap in the uphill fence, weeds curled like sleepers, mythic at its sides, and here, better to snap an ankle than to get away. Okay, so those are the book poems. Yeah, it's very weird to have it in the world now, but I'll move on to poems that are not in the world. This is their debut. So I'm going to read a series of newer poems from my current project. I'm working with combining ekphrasis or writing about art with writing about chronic pain. So this first one then fittingly is called Chronic. What is it a pain actually constitutes? I find it difficult to describe to the doctors. A person doesn't always have proof. I can admit here that I've felt sorry for myself when I wake up dull mornings with my canted jaw, ratty kneecap, some unspecified muscle or tissue gone wrong. But you don't want to hear about little old me, to use the words of my grandma, who tended to demur even prompted to describe basic facts or stories from her life. I'm not saying she was right to say it, just that in this resistance, I understand her. I usually try to spare you. To ache is human, not polite, but in the clean offices, I group gingerly some verbs, overwhelming mental image, each a seed bead I'm setting with tweezers on a long bed of glue. Because the professionals expect me to say something or anything, and the forms prompt that I fill the blanks. If yes, describe the nature of your pain. I say, doubtful as I am of cure, that one pain nags, single bead. Surely it pulls another. One pain sticks or grates or makes a little sharp. One distresses my vanity mainly. That pain is more and more visible in my jawline. Most yearns, I don't know how else to put it, as if rousing from prone to move away the various hurting parts. But they stay. The clinical mosaic I'd intended to mortar turns out to be, bluntly, crap. Baffling color, too small, no finish, no picture. The translation has no artistic or narrative merit. Now my recurring dream coheres. I'm relieved when the tooth my tongue's been troubling just falls out, which at first surprised me until I realized a missing tooth can't hurt anymore. I can't worry a spot the same. It's no longer chronic, meaning time no longer has it. My airtight logic. What's already fallen out, I explained to myself patiently, as you'd talk to a kid. The kid's still sleeping, more teeth falling, the mouth eventually empty as a gulch. Well, it can't fall out. Okay. Symptom gallery. When I search for my symptoms, the thumbnails show a row of women hunched, wincing, hands crossed at each low belly. Occasionally, an artist adds red blurring outward in case the gesture isn't enough. Somehow I love that the pictures imply we walk around like this always, that one of the signs is solemnly sharing pain in such an obvious and unignorable, thus enviable way, as a mere language we speak and others hear, an ideal, not an embarrassment, but mere communication, instead of waiting till we reach the public bathroom stall or home to fold over for a little gnash and weep. Okay. And this next one is part of a series of prose poems I've been playing with lately. This is Scrap Essay on Self-Pity. There are times it spills over, though I work to avoid them. For example, at the end of a yoga class with a friend, the teacher spoke while we lay in Shavasana. It's the hardest pose, he said, because it requires stillness. In that space, self-compassion might seep in. Excuse me. Rain, the first in weeks, fell on the lap pool outside, which overflowed continually on the concrete. I took up the risk of stillness and, unthinkingly, easily, before I knew what I'd done, cast self-compassion itself as a risk. And it is, somehow. The minute I choose it, I feel my usefulness, my wretched productivity, leak away. I was crying and trying to keep it secret. No stuffed nose or gasps, just the symmetrical slide of one stream into each ear, quiet as the water down the plate glass windows. I often consider the difference between pity and compassion. If compassion can be seen as simple witness, as they ask of the mind in meditation, pity implies a welling of judgment. Toward myself, I can't say it's common to feel the mercy of compassion without an edge of shame. My friend told me she dedicated our yoga practice to her pain. She thought I'd like that. And I actually had too. In that hour, our pains stretched and cursed beside each other, lapping at our bodies, which tried gamely to keep them in. Okay, just a couple more here. This one is based on this big pain management workbook I have. This one's called Workbook Exercises. Picture each hurting part, joint, organ, muscle, as aluminum foil ripped wrong and buckled in a fist. Then depict the cold and jagged stars flattened each by the iron, wrinkle by wrinkle smooth. I've tried that one. Here's another I made. Knots at my hips, knees, neck, belly, and hands curled to snarling. Then I pretend I've soaked each lock a time so I can gingerly comb myself out. The work is to picture what you're really feeling, then imagine the opposite and hope it moves. B, you could try it the other way around before coming back to the same old body as a traveler who very much meant to leave, goes home anyway, is anyway relieved. Okay. And this last poem is along that more ekphrastic mode that I mentioned earlier. This one's called Ostrakhan, which is based on, really the word just means like a shard of pottery or piece of wood or something that people in the ancient world would use to write on, like scrap paper. But this poem is kind of interacting with one of those pieces, those scraps. Ostrakhan. 1. To deflect the day, I found the Coptic plank with ink inscriptions fading downward. Wood painted, then paled, wood warped by water. Wood with its careful accession numbers strummed in red across frets of grain, so we can't forget the museum that boasts a Theban passage too far from its home. Heart distracted, I phrased the question, when did the writer wake up? Crudely, I'd meant to ask when you were born. I don't know you from Adam, as they say. Was barely awake myself. 2. I tend not to know how to say when it hurts. Firstly, I don't know what it is. I wait for the call and no doctor rings. Wait, then some more. And 2, how to phrase. It hurts, too hazy, also presumes you know about it already. Is the pain here, as if sensed in mammal form behind my back by a rolling prickle at my nape? Has it just arrived on the last horse to make this little prairie? Do I have it? Do I own it? Is it mine to keep? Can I point to my gut and have you understand a sense famously incommunicable, minimized, distended, comparable only to one's own experience, and as such usually kept under the tongue whole, like a talus bone? I talk around it. This way I don't lose it. I taste its chalk chafing off each time I move my jaw. 3. I realize the connections so far are oblique. I admit I'm often afraid to uncover an affinity so palpable to me. If no one else sees, what then? Such doubt tends to gray out even my own idea, but I'll venture. The ruining flank of the Coptic wood puts me in mind of what I can't say, too complex or too basic, too human either way. I don't know why it reminds me of the pain. Of another ostrakhan broken from a gray and orange pot, the papyrologist writes, the content of the letter remains unclear, as often with private letters, even when they are complete. This one was not. Later, she reports that the repetition is awkward. Therefore, I write to you, the person copied more than once, possibly about a chicken farm, the 27th day of some month. Greetings, farewell. 4. Pain is always new to the sufferer, but loses its originality for those around him, wrote Daudet. Everyone will get used to it except me, and so I often detain the dry flake of information that might pile up with today's weather, the shush of thin bends of grass that asks idle thoughts of when it last rained or when one last washed the sheets, and the record on a used envelope of which groceries toward which meals you brought home last week. 5. I don't know you. I hardly know anyone. One of the great curiosities, not exactly that I know anyone, but that I do know you, then don't, know and don't, know you in spindles from your handwriting's facture. I, more bluntly, imagine you know me. Therefore I write to you, the ostrakhan says of a business matter. Therefore I write to you, so that you know. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was wonderful. With our remaining time, we'll move into a Q&A section. So if you have had a question brewing, simmering on the back burner that you are dying to ask our readers, this is your time. You can throw it in the chat and I will ask on your behalf. You can ask yourself by unmuting yourself. We do request you raise your hand if you're not going to have your camera on, so that a bunch of voices don't ring out all at the same time. But I will get us started with a question that we like to ask all of our readers, which is, what are you obsessed with recently? This can be books that you're reading that you just really want to see more copies of out in circulation, or this can be craft things that you feel like you have to write about these days, a flower that you love, a TV series that you wish more people would watch. Whatever it is, what are you obsessed with? Maybe we'll start with Tzynya.
Oh gosh. I'm really obsessed with this woodpecker that followed me from where my old house was to this one. And I didn't see him for I'd say the first 6 months, and then he just popped up, and now he's in the tree outside my bathroom. There's like some kind of maple tree out there that's gorgeous, and he's in there just puttering around. So I'm really obsessed with him. And I've written like one poem where I'm kind of in conversation with him, which is a lot of fun. But as it's the time of year it is, I am obsessed with Hallmark style Christmas movies. Hallmark, Lifetime, um, Netflix Christmas movies. And I have already put up my Christmas counter. Like I have a little gingerbread house on my desk, and it has like the little tiles you can flip. So it's like 43 days until Christmas or whatever. So right now I'm just totally obsessed, and I'm even thinking about writing something in the style of like a Hallmark treatment, like a one page, like a poem, a one-page treatment that would be just kind of cheeky and formulaic. But so right now I'm just obsessed with anything that's cozy and warm and nurturing and, just kind of right now it's like the infatuation of winter. You know, it's dark early, you're infatuated, you're like, it's dark, shorter days, so I'm gonna get so much writing done, you know, before deep January comes and you're just like, okay, I'm over it.
Yeah, I identify with that. Right now I'm obsessed with hanging on to the last shreds of summer slash fall that are still around in West Texas. So that's one of mine. This doesn't exactly need boosting, but I just read Middlemarch for the first time, and that was amazing. So do it if you haven't. And I also just reread Wolf's on Being Ill, and I just forgotten how wonderful it is. I'm reading a lot of essays and books about pain and illness and kind of things we maybe don't talk about enough. So yeah, been thinking about all those. And I'm obsessed with wearing pajamas to a reading, which is the first for me, but I love it.
We are very covetous of our own brand. We want to spread the word, but also we kind of like that that's our thing. just wearing comfy pants. Thank you both for sharing your obsessions. I wish I had a little bird that followed me around for one. Like that's now on my bucket list. I don't know if I can force that to happen, but I hope one day I'll turn around and see a little critter that I recognize. Uh, as the next question from Gardner Dorton for both authors. And the format will go, unless it's directed to one specific author, to one reader, that maybe Tzynya, if you wanted to start, if you have an idea first, and then Emma follows. What medium do you like to write in most, by hand, Word document, etc.? And how does that inform how you write?
I would love to. I'm excited to hear Emma's response on this. If I'm writing prose, like if it's an essay, I tend to write it on I use my laptop, my computer. If it's poetry, I tend to write it longhand first before I transcribe it. If I'm struggling with a piece, like I know what I want to write, but I can't seem to get it going, then I write it longhand. I think when I write longhand, it forces me to slow down. I type really fast, like most of us do. And I think when I'm writing longhand, there's some kind of connection with the practice that makes me slow down and really take in every word.
Yeah, I might just have to copy you again. I mean, I'm the same way. Like prose, I never start longhand except for sketching out ideas or outlining. But sometimes, though, in poetry, I will write half a poem and then I start to feel kind of stuck in it, and then I start typing it, and then usually by the time I've caught up to transcribing where I was, I've figured out where to go from there. So yeah, there tends to be like a slow time and then like a speeding up time of. I love that you use the word transcribing too, because it almost feels like translating. You are always changing things as you're writing it down, or typing it up rather. Yeah, so I have a very similar relationship with that, I think. But I love what you said about handwriting forcing you to slow down, and it also helps that you can't do anything else in that space. You don't have like an internet browser right there or anything.
Yep.
A question from Will Durham. I have a question for both readers. I was wondering if there was a moment you recall that marked a turn in your work, thinking about pain as a main topic in your writing / your practice.
Probably for me, cancer. Having to deal with pain. I remember years ago when I was in labor with my daughter. I had some real heroic idea of labor. So I was like, no drugs, no anything, you know. I told my midwife and had my birthing plan. And I remember at one point at the beginning, like the first 4 hours of my 8-hour labor, it was, you know, very romantic. There was a lot of walking and pacing and talking and singing and all this kind of stuff that I learned in like Lamaze and everything. And then at one point it just transitioned into like sheer hell and terror. And I remember lying in the bed and I was like inching over to one side, and the midwife asked what I was doing. And I said, I'm making room for the pain because I just couldn't avoid it at that point. So I was like, I just needed to be in there with it. And I got to a point with cancer treatment that was the same thing. The pain was just so front and center and so aggressive that I just, instead of running from it, I just, you know, started writing odes to oxycodone and odes to, you know, pain. And it's like I just figured I needed to just step with it and just do it. And it's so present. You know, I think people who live with chronic pain, is there all the time. Maybe not every day, maybe not all day, but it's always there. So for me, it was just like having to be an adult about it and just confront it.
I love that you said that, Tzynya. Just like confronting it as being a big part of it, because I think that was it for me too. And I haven't been through anything as difficult or childbirth or cancer treatment, but um, I just it was that moment of being like, oh, this is my everyday now. And what do you do as a poet with something you have to deal with every day? You eventually end up writing something about it. It just becomes a part of what you're thinking about. I think it also, I mean, it was honestly it was a similar process, I think, to some of dealing with it in therapy or something. It's like greeting it, or like you said to Zinnia, giving it space. I don't know, kind of acting like it's a force of its own that has its own wants or something. And that you are just kind of, it's not even of you. It's like, it's something else. There's like a force that you're just happened to be dealing with. So for me, that was a big part of it. But it definitely took that like work in therapy also of being like, oh yeah, this is made me forever. I have to deal with that first. And then it, after that, it kind of started coming out.
Thank you both for those wonderful explorations into your lives and how it informs your craft. I had a question that I've been stewing on for a minute, for both of y'all as well. I heard this the other day in a lecture, a craft lecture, that some bits of your style are sown and therefore you get to reap the benefits, and some are found, discovered. And as I heard, I think it was first around halfway through your reading, Tzynya, a lot of consonants, and that consonants that it would sometimes extend to alliteration in the language that you employed, as well as even just more consistent metaphorical, references to nature that both of y'all's work has. I've been thinking recently about that idea of what we find and what we very intentionally sow, especially as it works on the line level, right? Like how we physically construct these lines. But I was curious if y'all had any thoughts or a little mumble ramble about your writing process and how you find yourself coming into those moments at the line level. Like you write something that has a lot of assonance or consonants, or something that has a lot of alliteration, and whether that is an intentional choice, whether it's something you find yourself in. And then the same goes with, you've just, re-referenced the glory of nature, the glory of the forest, the non-built environment, and whether that's a very intentional choice or whether you feel compelled to write these things.
That's an excellent question. I think I have so I'm a narrative poet. So I think I'm always starting with story or starting with an idea. And then I have to go back and find the music of it. And I find that I tend to write with a type of cadence. And it's funny because my boyfriend pointed this out to me in a piece I was reading. And he says, you realize you do this a lot where you vary like long run-on sentences with like short staccato. And I thought I never thought of it. I guess it's just what I kind of pulled to do. So I'd say in the past few years, I've really made an effort to go back after I kind of draft an idea or a piece. I go back intentionally to try to find the music and the musicality and see what the words are doing and how they sound, not just how they feel, but how they sound to someone else reading them or hearing them. Um, I do a lot of workshopping, and I work with a couple of great editors who are just phenomenal at kind of honing in and identifying something, or identifying, a piece, or just saying that, you realize these pieces are starting with plosives and that gives great action or whatever. Um, I do try to, I'm pulled to write about the natural world and I guess the mundane. I think there's so much beauty in just the everyday. Uh, but I also try, when I'm writing about the body, especially because right now I'm writing a lot about the body and pain and kind of the broken body. I really like the juxtaposition of the human body and its imperfections kind of in nature and in natural spaces. Because nature is perfect, but nature is volatile and tumultuous and violent, and it's just really bare and true. And there's something about that, and the brokenness of the body and the beauty of the body, that I really like. So I do have some intention. I wish I were just, a fairy and I just wrote, that these things just came to me. But no, there's like 1,700 versions of revisions to kind of interject that in.
It is a really great question, Eslin. Thank you. And Tzynya, I love your answer as well. For me, weirdly, it's kind of opposite. Like I think back to myself at 18 writing poems, and they made absolutely no sense, but the sounds were really nice. So to me, it was a process of learning to actually give my poems that narrative backbone so that people would care at all about what I was saying. 'Cause before that, they didn't make any sense. Or kind of learning more about dramatic structure and ways of connecting with the reader. I was not a natural at that stuff, but the sound, I think, came sort of naturally. Although I think a lot of it is just like what I've read, or who knows, it's like the thing that Donald Hall says, that like if you're very lucky, something will happen in your writing of which you were not aware. And then you revise toward that, basically. So that's luckily the thing that I'm not so aware of, and it usually seems to fit. But there's definitely a lot of revision to make sure it makes sense to others and has some kind of narrative thread, or to punch up the sounds I was already playing with. But often, weirdly, kind of can you say like the soundscape? That sounds terrible, but the sounds of the poem seem to be there pretty early on for me. Yeah, I don't know. And as for nature, I think that was very much just growing up very rural as I did. That was just, I think it's less, I think it's just more like, how did you come to know what the world was like? And for me, it was very much in nature and not really around people. Maybe that's why they're not so narrative at first. But yeah, for me, that was just kind of, that's where my mind goes when I'm trying to think of what something feels like. It's almost always something in nature or outside or embodied in some way.
I like your answer, Emma, about the surprise. It's fantastic. It's funny because I write essays, but I prefer, I love prose poetry. That's like my first love. And I love lyrical essays. And a lot of times there's like a real thin line between, is it an essay, or is it a lyrical essay, or a prose poem? And it's funny because that's the one thing about like a standard chronological essay that's not kind of jumping back and forth, is the music. It's really hard for me to write a standard essay that's just informative and it flows. It's because I feel like I'm missing the music. But I love when you're working on something and the piece surprises you. And it's fantastic. And then of course for me, then I have the part after that where I'm thinking every time I sit down to write, I'm never going to get surprised again. Like I'm never going to find that magic again. Like it was just a one-off, but that surprise is just, I love when you write something and it turns on you and you're like, wow, okay. And then you're chasing after it. You're like, okay, where do you want me to go? I'm here. Yeah.
Hope everyone paid attention to that. That was both beautiful sides of the same spectrum, laid bare, and I find myself, as maybe others do, kind of caught hither and yon, depending on uh, depending on the temperature outside. But it's good to know that there's such a good grounding in either direction. We are unfortunately out of time. Thank you both so much for lending your voice tonight, and for everyone for lending your time. This is our last reading of the year, Snaps. We will be returning in a week's time or so with a call for readers to assemble our 2024 cohort. So if you would like to be up on this little virtual stage reading your work, please follow us on Facebook at Poets in Pajamas, or on our WordPress at WordPress.poetsinpajamas. You can also follow our parent Sundress Publications and Sundress Academy for the Performing Arts to stay up to date with everything that we do. But with that, thank you again. I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and we will see you soon.